Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am CEO and founder of Elets Technomedia Private Limited. We are a 17-year-old organization who have been focusing on innovation in education, and we have been publishing a magazine called Digital Learning for past 16 years. It's a monthly print magazine and an online magazine with a huge presence on the social media. And we have been organizing workshops and conferences in the field of education, preschool, school, and higher education in more than 100 cities inside India and more than 15 cities outside. And today we are having an interesting webinar on international boards, the challenges and opportunities which the international boards are facing in these COVID-19 times. And we are having a interesting range, eminent speakers, panelists who are here with us from a broad range of schools which are spread across different cities and with different legacies of each school. So may I request each of the panelists to please introduce themselves and their schools in 1 or 1.5 minutes each, and then we will start the panel discussions. So I will request with Mukesh Sharma to kindly start.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mukesh Sharma. I am a first-generation entrepreneur. I started a company in 2003 called QA Infotech. So from technology background, the company did really well. 17 years since I started QA Infotech. Last year, we started a school called Prometheus School, which is an IB candidate school for primary years. We are filing for MYP candidature and DP candidature as well in the next couple of months. So this is our first year of operation, and I'm very excited and looking forward to having the discussion.
Great. Thanks for joining, Mukesh. May I request Dr. Oli to please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Oli Tooher Hancock, head of the International School of Hyderabad, which is where I am at the moment. We're going into our 7th week of continuous learning, a fairly smooth transition. We do a curriculum framework up to grade 8 called the Common Ground Collaborative. So there are no grades or anything like that we were talking about before. And then we do IGCSE in 9 and 10 and diploma in 11 and 12. So our 2 grades that have been affected mostly by this have been 10 and 12. And we've had to sort of think creatively out of the box to see what data we can collect that's good assessment to show the kids in the best light possible. We've got 6 weeks left of the school year, and it's going to be continuous learning. So that's where we are. We're in a unique situation. We're in an international crop research centre. We're their trustee. So our foreign teachers are all on this campus, and our local teachers are all at home in varying degrees of lockdown. And I think most of our students are here. Some of them are also overseas. They've gone back to their homes. But everyone's relatively comfortable, I think, in their given the current situation.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Oli. May I request Surabhi to briefly introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Surabhi Goel. I'm the CEO for the education initiatives of the Aditya Birla Trust. Within this, we run a K-12 international school, which offers both the A-levels as well as the IB, the grade 12. So just like Oli mentioned, we had, of course, a very challenging time with both our grade 10 and 12. We also run our children for a school for children who learn differently and have special needs. That's another school that, of course, we've really struggled with because, there are children, and just like every other kid, they're unique. And, we've had to figure out how to tailor make, lessons plans for them. And we also run a teacher training institute, which incidentally is, where our focus is right now because they really need to be upskilled and, they've been thrown at the deep end and we're all trying to figure our way out. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Surabhi. May I request Dr. Fisher to please introduce yourself?
Hi, Geoffrey Fisher. I'm currently head of BD Somani International School, which is in Colaba in South Mumbai. We are, again, a mixed curriculum school, so we also have Cambridge exams and the IB diploma. So this topic is of interest to me. Like I think all schools, we have moved with greater effect than we had perhaps anticipated to online learning, but we are seeing the impact, shall we say, of too much screen time, not enough relaxation, different sets of progress, and how do we individualize a curriculum in a commonly broadcast way. So these are all challenges that we're facing. Thank you for the opportunity of being here.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher, for joining in. May I request Pratima to please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pratima Sinha, CEO of DSR Educational Society in Hyderabad. We have a K-12 school called Birla Open Minds International School, which is a franchisee of Birla EduTech Mumbai. We also have 6 preschools with us. And that's where actually, I know it is not part of this session, but that's where we are really facing all the challenges and we are working on it. Of course, online sessions and, teachers being thrown into technology mode and all that has been happening with us also. But I'm so happy that I've been invited by ELTS to be part of this webinar.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pratima. Just to inform that we are called Elets. Let's go.
Elets.
E.
Elets.
Elets.
Okay.
Elets.
It's education.
Elets.
Yeah. Let's get educated.
Okay.
Let's go for education. So
Wonderful.
Yeah. Dr. Jayshree, please.
Good afternoon. I'm the founder and the chairperson for the Jayshree Periwal group of schools in Jaipur. So we've got about 6 kindergartens and 3 K-12. So we do CBSE, but my international school, we do PYP, we do IGCSE, and of course the IB diploma. And very proudly, we get probably one of the best placements in the university in the US or in UK. And at the moment, what we're trying to do is to eliminate digital poverty. We want everybody to be savvy with technology, and I'm sure these difficulties are leading us to determination, and that has been our goal.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Jayshree. May I request Ian to please speak?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm the head of school here in Chembur Ghatkopar in Mumbai. I'm also the dean of a college for a degree. So we go K to 12, and also we have a partnership with an American university, all on the same campus. So we're going from the tiny ones right through to the older generation of people on the same campus, and quite interesting ways we're dealing with them. We've been going as Garodia Education has been going for 50 years, but we moved to a new campus for the international section 3 years ago. And so we're lucky that we've been able to quite swiftly move over into the digital side and to distance learning online that's taking place at the moment. And we've been in lockdown for about 7 weeks now, and with all of the situation is dealing with that. So it's quite interesting to listen and learn from everyone else, how they're coping, and come up with some lovely ideas. So I'm as much a learner here today as an expert. So thank you already for all of your ideas from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian. May I request Randy to please speak?
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Great, great. I'm glad I got my technology issues solved. My name is Randy Stevenson. I'm the head of Corvuss American Academy, which is located between Mumbai and Pune. It's a first of its kind international boarding school they will be opening in September 2020. So we're in a little bit different situation, being a new project that will open in a few months. We are a grade 6 to 12 American curriculum school, one of, or if not the first fully American accredited offering a US high school diploma on Indian soil for the first time. So we've been working really hard with both the state and the national government, and we're very excited to be bringing this opportunity to students and families in India. The difference between us and any other school in India or even in the region is that we cater to student athletes. So we have a fully harmonized program of academics and athletics. So in order to gain admissions to our program, you must have some athletic passion and proficiency to be able to gain admissions to our program. The goal is to eliminate the issue that occurs in India where students quit or don't have an opportunity to pursue college athletics. So we're providing an opportunity, and that's my background, is to ensure that the talented athletes and very bright students here in India have an opportunity to now to go to the US, Canada, Australia, and pursue their passion of playing college sports. So very excited to be here, and I'm happy to share my thoughts about what's happening here during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure. May I, thanks for the intro, everyone. And may I request that we now go to the questions or the challenges. And many of the challenges are similar for the international boards, but still we should speak to each of us because as someone has mentioned that some schools are different, some are starting, some are in a different situation. So I will also change the order a bit just to avoid the repetitions. So I'm going to request each of the panelists to speak for 1 minute or 1.5 minutes about the challenges briefly. So I will start with Dr. Jayshree Periwal, please.
The biggest challenge is that we as humans are social animals. And then when we don't connect physically, we don't shake hands, we don't give a hug, we don't look at one another, we don't feel happy. So this has been a challenge, and we're trying to overcome it as much as possible through technology. Our entire curriculum is digitalized, but the challenge is still there because not everybody likes so much of screen time. Not everybody is adept at handling technology. Not everybody is engaged while you're teaching from a distance. So these are the challenges that we are facing and trying to overcome them, because I think adversity will lead to opportunity and challenges are leading us to solutions.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Jayshree. May I request Surabhi to please respond?
Okay, I think the question that everybody wants answers to, and I think nobody has the answers to, are basically, I'll put it into 3 buckets, from an administrative point of view. One is, when are schools starting? When can we go back to school? The second question is that if we were to start school, who goes back to school? So who's allowed to be back in school? And then the third question really that needs to be answered here is, okay, what are the measures that we need to take when, we do go back to school? So I think those are the 3 main challenges. When do we start? Who do we bring in? And what do we really do to ensure the safety of, of all the people who come in? And then we can kind of break it down further.
Exactly. Dr. Fisher, your views on the challenges.
Well, I of course agree with the challenges that have been put out before us already, but I would add that I think the international boards have a real challenge in terms of the authenticity of their assessment. You can see the difference between, for example, the IB diploma, which has always used a broad panel of different assessments, compared to the Cambridge qualifications, which have been assessed on a much narrower boundary. And so the challenge for both of those boards is, how do they remain authentic? How do they remain of value? how do they continue to offer things, qualifications which the universities will accept as being valid and proper passage from one place to another. Those are all going to be challenges which the international boards have to face, and which we as teachers and schools will have to look at very seriously, because it's almost certain that the responsibility for that more authentic assessment will fall back on the schools. That, of course, means it will fall back on the teachers, and so to retain the quality of teachers, to give them the proper development and training which will allow them to deliver that authentic learning experience in a way which can be assessed with a sufficient degree of rigor is going to be, I think, where the major challenges, but also where the major opportunities lie.
Sure. May I request Pratima Sinha to please respond?
I would say that the challenges that we have faced has been from all the stakeholders. Our session had already started before the lockdown. So our teachers were already prepared with the curriculum, with the lesson plans and everything, and that had to be dumped back, and the new lesson plans based on live teaching had to be made. Many of our teachers were not really equipped, so they had to be trained. That was the major challenge that we faced. Second challenge that we faced was grooming the students to take up these classes, grooming the parents to take up these classes. Because even parents, at home, maybe they just have one laptop. So the timings that had to be, shared with the parents, different timings, if supposing they have 2 children in the school, siblings. So we had to actually give them different timings. So there were plenty of challenges related to students as well as parents. And of course, as a CEO, I would say that financials are also a big challenge that we are facing right now.
Yes. Dr. Oli.
Yeah, first of all, Randy, I do have to say we've been an American accredited school since 2009, and we've always been very, very proud of it because that's where our students go to university. I think just to back on what everybody's been saying about the social aspect of it, and of course, this has highlighted something that we've always known, that every student is different, and it's a lot more difficult, I think, to differentiate online versus in a face-to-face situation. But to back onto what Jeff was saying, if we are really just focusing on the international boards, one of the big issues that we've faced is this whole idea of the kids. A couple of things happening. Kids that may have got a 6 or a 7 are now going to say they should have got a 7 if they get a 6. And there's a lot more pressure being put onto the teachers over predicted grades. And so it's authenticity from the teachers to have the confidence actually to say, no, this is the level of this particular student. So I think it's going to be very interesting how those results unfold because the nature of the assessment has changed. And whilst the nature of the assessment is probably a good assessment, I think with last minute and nobody really being prepared for that, it will definitely put, some kids will be advantaged because of that and some kids will be disadvantaged because of that. And the ones that will be disadvantaged, they'll be appealing to the IB queries upon results. I can see that being a big thing this year. So be just very interested to see how all that rolls out with universities and placements as well.
I request Mukesh to speak.
Thank you. I agree with everyone's point, but I would like to bring up a few other challenges, that we need to think about as educators. Number 1 being cyber phishing. Are our children ready? Are our children aware of what is cyber phishing? So that's an aspect that I would like us to think about. The other one being, while all the schools that I know of, which are international, were very quick to transition to online classes and things were going well. You can't give the same experience, for the reasons that all my friends in the panel have already talked about. But we need to think about the factors like student-teacher ratio. While in the physical classroom, I'm talking about primary years now, 20 to 25 children with 1 form tutor, 1 assistant tutor, and a couple helpers works out very well. But in the online session, how effective is it? So that's something, that we did a survey, and what we figured out from a number of folks who participated in the survey, that the right balance would be around 1 teacher, 10 students, 10 to 12, but beyond that, it becomes difficult. And I won't go into the details because there are a number of them. I appreciate some of the points that were brought up by other panelists. The one that Pratima ji mentioned, which is sibling challenges, we've had that. We've had challenges of learning resources. So while we were prepared because of our technology background and smart teachers that we've got who are tech savvy, it was very easy for us to transition from physical classrooms to online classrooms. But one of the things, especially for primary school, was the resources that are usually there in the school weren't there in at home. So whatever resources that one has in their at their home, they are trying to use those to be able to do their unit of inquiry and all. Another important point that Dr. Fisher brought up about authenticity of grades for DP and assessments. I was reading on IBO, so because we are IB school, I was reading their blog, and one of the things that they've mentioned is that they are going to use some kind of a mechanism to be able to predict grade based on certain parameters, which makes me think that there is some artificial intelligence that is going to be used. How authentic would that be? Have we tested it? Most of the times, students, they prepare really well for the exam when the exams happen, but otherwise they could be casual about it. So what impact would those students have of this approach which the international schools are going to take? So those were some of the points that I wanted to bring up. Another last point that I want to leave a thought for all of us to think about is, while all of us were very quick to adapt, how easy, how ready are we when it comes to differently abled? And by differently abled, I'm referring to 3% of world's population that is visually impaired and 5% of world population that is having auditory disabilities. Have we thought about them, about inclusion? I mean, most of us are in inclusive school, but in online, when it comes to online sessions, is that working?
May I request Randy to respond, please?
So we have a very different set of challenges, and I'm not going to go into that as a new school, but having spoken to many families and students who are coming to us in September, they're looking at the transition plan from their current school to our school in September. And one of the things that I hear is that there's really not a lot of focus on mental health, overall wellness, fitness. So the focus seems to be really heavily on academic assessment. What are we going to do about scores? What are we going to do about CBSE exams? So, we need to keep in mind that these are children, and we have to approach it from their perspective and put ourselves in their shoes. This is unprecedented, as everyone knows. So, it's really important that we get to their level and we speak with them and we understand. And, the educators play a key role in that and have, whether it's in the classroom or online. So whether you do a chat, whether during your session you have an opportunity for anonymous questions, there's many ways that you can reach out to the children to make sure they're okay. Because let's be real, it's difficult for a lot of families and a lot of parents who may not know how to navigate this situation. So they may react in very different ways. And as professional educators, it's our duty to make sure that even though the students are not in front of us, we still have a duty of care to make sure that they are doing well. And the academics, in my opinion, is important, but the reality is this pandemic and the health of our children in this nation are much more important. And that's a challenge I think that a lot of families are facing. And what I'm hearing from even the students who I talk to, right? Like providing them a calendar, a schedule for the day. What time do I eat? What time do I study? What time do I do a bit of, exercise? how much screen time do I have for video games? So all of those things, you know, I prepared schedules for many, many families who haven't been provided that and are looking for some structure. So that's the one thing as well that I would also comment on as a challenge, you know, because students may be staying up till 2, 3 in the morning and the online session might be at 8. So there's all of those issues surrounding this new reality as well.
Sure. Thank you, panelists, for talking about the challenges. I think varied range of challenges from the grading to assessment to screen time to devices, security, range of issues. Now we are all seeing that lockdown has got extended. We are all seeing that the cases are increasing. When are going to schools open and what will be the safety issues? All these are the emerging issues. So I will request each of the panelists to talk about the way forward for the international schools in like living in this COVID situations and dealing with it and still performing to our best. So may I request Dr. Oli to start?
Yeah, thank you. We've been involved with other international schools worldwide, and we've been following their advice because they're ahead of us, if you like. So schools in China and Vietnam, etc. So I think we have to be prepared for a school that doesn't look like the school did 6 or 7 weeks ago. And I think in my head, I think we're looking at blended learning, where we have a situation, as somebody was saying about that ratio of a 10-to-1, it seems to be that kids are coming back to schools in pods of 10, and that they remain in those pods. So we're looking at, for example, putting more sinks in, that kind of thing, in terms of the hygiene, thermal scanners, all of those kind of things need to be put in place. But I kind of envisage either half the week kids will be physically in school and half the week they will be learning virtually. Well, and how that actually looks and how we roll that out is yet to be determined. But I think schools as we know them, I don't think they're ever going to go back to exactly that same model. And I see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge.
Sure. Dr. Fisher, your response, please. Way forward.
Well, I agree with Ollie. We're certainly going to be looking at a blended learning model going forward. And we're certainly looking at how we can manage student learning with partly online, partly face-to-face. And certainly before we go face-to-face, we have to assure a very critical audience of our parents as to exactly how we're going to be guaranteeing safety both for our students and our faculty. And guarantee is a big word when it comes to safety in these particular areas. So we're doing all of that. I think I agree also that the major challenge is going to be to our pedagogy and how the assessment is going to work in such a way that we're supportive of the international boards, that we're providing authentic grades which are supportable and sustainable from their perspective, but doing so in a way which is more in keeping with the expectations and demands of this new pedagogy. I personally have an interest in blockchain and whether or not COVID might be the incentive to move towards a whole different type of assessment which is authenticated and you carry forward throughout your life, but is not necessarily related to exams taken in May or November. So lots and lots of challenges, but also I think a lot of opportunities. And I also agree with Jayshree that how do we make human and how do we build the human knowledge and learning and the capacity to interact between ourselves, that sort of social capital, if you like, into an online form of learning. Thank you.
Thank you. May I request Dr. Jayshree to please respond?
So we've had this very effective online curriculum, small class sizes, 2 teachers. So we don't only encourage teacher-student interaction, but a peer-to-peer interaction also. And we're making sure that the children pursue their hobbies, be it Bharatnatyam to salsa, from physical training to chess, from judo to classical music, from sitar to say online learning of whatever they desire. Our faculty has learned it and is delivering all this to our children. We have virtual assemblies, clubs are on, MUN sessions are on, there's speech and drama. So we're trying to make it as close to physical school. Of course, it's not the same. Virtual cannot be, but we're trying to bridge this gap as much as we can. We can't hear you, Ravi.
Sorry. Yeah. May I request Ian to please respond?
Yes, hello. Interesting listening to everybody, and I think that I agree totally with what everyone's saying about new ways of learning, new pedagogies, etc., etc. The biggest thing for my leadership team, we've been looking through the notion of resilience, because what we've been doing is how are we building, extending and enhancing resilience of all of our community, not just our students, but our support staff, our workers, also our teachers as well, through this crisis, so that everyone can return in a situation of huge safety. And we're all working on SOPs to deal with that. But I think the biggest thing for me is that communication has become far more important in the ways that we are more transparent sometimes than we have been in the past. We mustn't be afraid to show vulnerability if it's there. We must be really making even more of an effort to make personal, legitimate contacts with everyone in our community in a more difficult situation where we can't actually speak to them face to face. And the pleasing aspect that we're learning is that the students, yes, some of them will work online well, some of them won't, but it's somehow giving an even more of a human touch to what we're doing as educators in even more difficult times, now and in the future. That's really what's critical to me. We can all interpret the exam boards, we can all help our students to move forward because we're professionals. And we'll all do that very well. I have no doubt about that. And we'll all collaborate very well. But it's how our leadership teams are moving the nature of resilience forward in our schools in the future.
Sure. Thank you, Ian. May I request Mukesh to please respond?
Dr. Ravi. Thank you, Dr. Ravi. It was nice to hear everyone's thoughts. While I completely agree with what Dr. Jayshree talked about, Dr. Oli, Randy, and I was very fascinated by what Dr. Fisher talked about, which is blockchain. So, and that in fact, makes a lot of sense. We've being a technology from technology background, we've built a product which is called validateme.online. So when you can just go and look at the product, it's called validateme.online. It uses blockchain as a technology, and you can have your the child's records, because in blockchain the advantage is once the issuing body puts a document in the blockchain, it becomes stamped and it's a trusted document. So it can't be altered. It cannot be altered by anybody. So that is the advantage. And if schools and universities and organizations start to use the platform to upload the certified documents, assessments and all, then the problem of getting the verification done from different universities or colleges would be minimized. Dr. Jayshree talked about the kind of interest that they are trying to bring in the classroom is very interesting, because what we are also doing is you have to think out of the box. These are unprecedented times. Children are not sure what is going on. There is a lot of uncertainty. Learning is not the same. While teachers who are teaching from home or through online classroom sessions, they are doing a great job managing their teaching as well as home. But do we really know if the children are actually learning? How are we assessing that? So, are we able to make these sessions interesting? Are the children getting up and like waiting for the class to happen? So what is it that teachers can do when it comes to making these online classroom sessions meaningful, more meaningful than ever before? Because these are the times we have to be really creative. In fact, I'm very happy to share with you, we've done a number of sessions wherein we are not just engaging children but also parents. Like, what is your hobby? So just this last Friday we had a 5:30 p.m. session with parents and children, wherein they would come and they'll talk about their hobby, and a lot of interesting things. There is a session which is we are doing, wherein child is going to interview their father, and we are going to have a Zoom session. So the questions are going to be just like a journalist would ask who they are interviewing. So trying to bring in variations and interesting ideas to be able to encourage children to learn, and then be able to assess whether they are able to practically use what they are learning. My time is up, but
yeah, great. Thank you, Mukesh. May I request Pratima to please respond?
Everybody, all the members here, panelists here, are very true when they say that, first of all, safety and health is important. Connectivity is very important. The human touch is important. So we are also trying to look into all those aspects. HRD ministry has just come up with the directives of, in case when you open the school, what are you supposed to do? For me, logistics, to plan logistics is going to be very important, because 99% of our students, they come by school bus. And so giving them the transport, staggered timings, staggered classes, all this is actually what we are working on right now. In fact, we are also coming up with new standard operation procedures, SOPs, because whatever SOPs we had till now, we have to really relook into it. Based on that only we can move forward. So those are what we are right now working on. Teachers, of course, as two of our panelists, they spoke about how teachers are coming up with new creative ideas to keep the students busy. That is happening. Of course, yoga classes and co-scholastic as well as scholastic activities are happening, dividing the number of classes also per subject. All these things have really, a lot of planning has gone into all this. So definitely it is moving forward. There is the parallel, schooling at home and schooling in school will be happening for, I think, another 1 year, I would say. So we need to really, really plan out everything and move forward.
Sure. May I request Randy to respond, please?
Yes, no problem. So we're in a unique situation. We're a boarding school. So there's a lot of positives with a boarding school. The biggest issue with COVID-19 is the contacts. So one of the big issues with day programs is that the children go home, go to, wherever they're going in the evenings, and there's multiple contacts, and then they're returning the next day. And the potential of transmission is greater because of those contacts amongst all of the student population, the teachers, and so on. So we have, with our partner, International School Services, about 500 schools around the world. So our epidemiologists and our team are looking at, the different health and safety guidelines and policies that will be instituted. For example, when the international teachers and coaches arrive, 14 days isolation. When the students arrive, physical distancing on campus of 2 meters, reducing the numbers in the dorm rooms, 7 to a classroom. There's all kinds of actual health and safety guidelines that have to be put in place when it comes to academics. And those they're pretty standard, not so difficult. The more challenging is with athletic training. So, we've reached out to our football partner, for example, Manchester City in Manchester, UK, and they have a set of guidelines that will garner support and we'll be able to implement here for our football program. Impact Basketball in Las Vegas, they have specific guidelines that they're instituting at their facility, so we'll just replicate those here. And with boarding, the same thing. We have to have certain guidelines that protect students' health and safety is paramount. The other thing is that with a boarding school, we'll have restrictions on, for example, the first 30 days, no exit, no entry. So we're allowed to assess and make sure that the students' health and safety, the staff health and safety is paramount and taken care of. For example, contactless delivery, so food sources that are coming in, there are not contractors and external personnel coming into the campus to allow potential transmission. So all of those things are being looked at right now. We're hoping that, there's less of a concern as September 1st comes along, but we're certainly prepared for that. The academic piece is pretty straightforward. We have a partnership with the University of Nebraska. So our students actually get a high school diploma from Nebraska. And part of our model is a blended learning model. So our advanced placement program, students have access to multiple courses, either online or blended. Many of our athletes will be competing in national championships, so they're gone for 2-3 weeks. So our program and the American curriculum is more performance-based, not attendance-based. So the academic piece, it won't be a big issue for us.
Sure. May I request Surabhi to please respond?
I agree with what everybody is saying. I think as international schools, we are anyways a privileged lot, right? So all our, most of our staff members would say, for example, have access to a laptop, the children would have access to some of the other device. So honestly, the teaching learning has not stopped. The teachers have been thrown at the deep end, but I think they've done a fabulous job. And, a lot of extracurricular and co-curricular activities are also taking place. So honestly, if you ask me, the teaching aspect is not something that worries me, even if, we can't sort of go back to school for a couple of months. It's the transition of going back to school when we eventually do, which is what is the piece that, I kind of keep worrying about. Because if you see world over, except for Sweden, all countries have nearly shut schools, except for, I think, maybe China, Japan, or some other, countries who have managed to open schools successfully. Schools are still shut. Then there are a whole lot of questions as to who should be going to school. Should it be the primary school children who should be going to school? Because, their parents cannot go back to work because they don't have babysitting options. And, if the children are at home, then how do they go back to work? So is it the primary school children who should be going back to school, or is it the secondary school students? Because, they can say manage social distancing. Having said that, I feel that, I was part of a webinar last week where there were, all these mommy bloggers. And one thing that was unanimously agreed by all parents was that we are not in a hurry to send our children back to school. Unless it's absolutely safe, unless we're absolutely sure, children are really not going to be going back to school. So I'm a little confused about this whole debate about alternate day and shifts and odd and even and 10 kids to, I don't even know how that's going to happen, because the way I look at it, I don't even see parents sending their children back to school unless we're like totally out of this. So that's my thought on this.
Exactly. So, yes.
One more challenge that I felt was a major challenge with so many, online portals that have come in, which is the safest and which is good for students to use, was actually a big challenge for us to understand. And the number of tools that have come in to teach the students through online programs, we are bombarded every day with so many online portals. So that was actually a big challenge, which I personally felt that we need to really, really look into.
Can I take that question?
Yes.
I think every school has their own model. So for example, if a school is on a Google platform, then it's the easiest thing to do because you can go ahead with Google Classrooms. It's safe, and the students and the teachers would have a Gmail account, and it's kind of a simple thing to do. I know there's a lot of noise about Zoom not being safe, but our IT team has worked on it, and they figured out, certain very simple measures like what kind of passwords you need to set, how often you need to change, and even just sharing some simple best practices like this with both the teachers and the students has made it a lot safer. Having said that, the cyber world is only as safe or unsafe as everything else, right? Like, so if I'm posting on Instagram or on Facebook, well, that could also be potentially unsafe. And if I'm using the same password for my Zoom account as my bank account, then probably that's not the right thing to do. So, but I totally hear what Pratima is trying to say, because, we're also bombarded with a whole lot of things. But I think it's a great opportunity to be able to figure out,
Yeah.
we were pushing teachers to kind of do stuff online, or, kind of embrace a lot of these, tools, but they were reluctant. But now that, they have to, I find a lot of teachers really trying to upskill themselves and learn new technologies.
Thank you, Surabhi.
Great, fantastic. So some of the panelists have raised a question about the revenue impact, financial impact of the crisis, and some of the panelists have mentioned that they are not interested to talk about it, so which is okay. So may I request some of us to talk about it? At least it's like very, very important. So may I invite Pratima to speak about this issue.
Yeah, so Telangana government has given a clear order. I think everywhere it's the same, that we are not supposed to collect the term fees, and the fees that we collect should be only the tuition fee. And also we give an option to the parent that, to pay month-wise. Somewhere the revenue has to be generated, because we have fixed expenditures. Some of our preschools are, they are rented, so we have to pay rents. There are a lot of expenditure, fixed expenditures. So that's where this issue definitely is a financial management is definitely a major part of challenge that we are facing. Definitely, we do not want the teachers to, we will be giving complete salaries and everything to the teachers for sure. But it is a lot of challenge, a major challenge. How to manage all the finances.
You want to respond to it, Dr. Jayshree, on this part? Issue. Surabhi, you want to speak?
Yeah, so I like to break up this issue into two parts. See, one is managing the parent expectations. So the parents will say, hey, you're not paying the electricity bill, you're not really getting the food into the canteen, you're not probably doing that annual day, so your expenses have gone down, so why don't you give us a respite? So they genuinely, it's not the point of whether they can afford to pay the fees or not. It's basically because they think that the schools are sort of saving somewhere, so why not pass that benefit? It could also mean that they are genuinely in an economic crisis. So yes, they may have lost their job or have undergone a pay cut. Earlier on, I know some of us discussed that, in an international school, fees may not be an issue, but I disagree, because in India now there's a trend that parents are stretching themselves to send 2 children to an international school where the fees is really high, and it's all hard-earned money and cash, So I think there are always parents who are kind of living hand to mouth, and therefore find it very difficult to pay the fees. And they're looking at opportunities to be able to kind of put pressure on the school to reduce the fees or give them some sort of a waiver. But I will completely agree with Pratima. The teachers are working even harder. And school is not only about electricity bills, and there are a whole lot of expenses. Anyways, in India, schools are all run under a trust, and they're supposed to be not for profit, and which is what most good organizations and trusts would be. They would have a corpus, of course, where they would park in some money to kind of do refurbishments, etc. But I see no reason why parents should not be asked to pay the fees. Of course, we need to support them. So, for example, we're in talk with 3 organizations which allow EMI facility for parents to be able to pay the fees. So that's a facility, of course, that we can offer. We will be gentle with the parents, if they take more time to pay the fees. But I am completely, I think fees needs to be collected, because that is literally the only revenue, the only source of income for schools. And therefore, I see no reason, why that should not happen. But yes, we need to be a little more empathetic to parents as well.
Absolutely. So here, Dr. Ravi, if I have your permission, I would like to...
Yes.
While I agree with Ms. Pratima completely, there is, I think that as a promoter of the school, as the founder of the school, we need to have a clear understanding and of what is it that we are trying to achieve. Are we trying to build an international school that is to cater to the needs of a particular segment, or do we have an international school? And we understand that currently we are in the situation, the lockdown situation, wherein a lot of people, including parents who are associated with schools, are impacted. And while parents, they should consider paying the fees, but as a school, we need to look at, the real impact in terms of working from home, not having the expenses that we were having when the school was operational. So what is it that can be passed back even without parents coming to you and asking? So as a school, we did that exercise. Even before a single parent came to us, we gave a discount of 25% on our tuition fee during the lockdown period. Once we are back to school, the fees is going to be charged normally. So that was something that we did. Why should a parent be paying transportation fee when they are not using transportation? You know, you can look at it from both sides.
I mean, no school definitely will charge transport.
No, but Pratima, I'll tell you. So I spoke to my vendor and he said, you know, we've got buses, we have EMI, we have registration,
yeah, driver's fees,
driver's salary. So fuel is literally only maybe 10 or 20% of the entire fees collected. So you think if you wanted to pass on some discount, we can. But as a parent also, I understand, as a parent, they'll be like, we're not using the service, but we are also paying our helpers at home, even though they're not coming to cook or clean. So that, I mean, I think that argument doesn't work for me. So if there is true saving, of course, one can pass it on. But even as a transporter, and you know, a lot of transport companies and schools are outsourced, they have their expenses. So how does that work? I mean, you know, how are they to pay their drivers and not then charge parents?
You know, we have a boarding house. So we have removed the meals. We have removed at least 30% off on our boarding school students. The fact that they're not with us, the fact that we're not providing them food.
Sure.
So we have made these efforts to lessen it. We've also removed meals even for our day scholars, because our school runs from 8 till 4 in the evening. So we've removed the transport and we've removed the food, both of them. We made a midway that we spoke to our transport in charge. So you bear some cost and the school will bear some cost. So a parent is a little at ease. That's what we did.
So we run our own buses. We have our own buses. So we have to really look into it. Of course, we have also been working on everything and we have kind of tried to put a balance to it. So all these aspects have come into picture, and as I said, SOPs are being made, new SOPs are being made to move it further.
In fact, my bus friend was telling me last week, sorry, I'll just last point and then, you know, we can
sure.
He said that, you know, there are talks that he may have to run the bus half capacity, right? So there are talks.
That's another thing.
So he's saying, then how are we going to, I mean, you know, how does that work? Then is the parent going to come back to me and tell me that, hey, I'm only using the bus 3 times out of 5 times, so I'm only going to pay you 60% of, you know, the total transport fees. So I think it's really tricky and there's really no correct answer.
Yeah, we're all in a catch-22 situation. What's real is a double-edged sword, because if you want to be empathetic to a parent or look at the finances and pay your teachers and support staff, so we will, I mean, it is tricky and we'll have to find a mid-path somewhere.
Sure. So I think as Jayshree mentioned, this whole situation is a catch-22 situation. Now, we have discussed about safety issues, we have discussed about academic issues, we have discussed about revenue issues. So I will request each of the panelists to, in 1 or 1.5 minutes each, talk about how this COVID-19 is going to change or impact the schools in the, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, like the way it has been operating. It will be having some short-term and long-term impacts in several ways, the way it works. So if they request Jayshree to respond.
See, our challenges, of course, as Dr. Oli said, were IBDP assessments. So what we tell our children that don't work for just one exam. That's not going to be the end all and be all. You're going to get more opportunities, and life is not fair for all of us. What we need to do for our CAS, IBDP, the children are encouraged to do crowdfunding. They do online webinars to build toilets for the poor villagers. We've done this in the last 1 month. Feeding stray animals. The children have come forward to bring in scientists, virologists, entrepreneurs, actors to come as webinars, as speakers, and motivate and show them way forward. So these are challenging times. But one thing good about being away and being tuned to technology is that it's an equal platform for the rich and the poor. Everybody can learn economically from living in a village or living in a city. So that disparity will probably move away. So there is some kind of ray of hope also. Everything what is happening, there will be more opportunities and some will definitely benefit. So our purpose is to look what best can we learn, how can we adapt, how do we move forward, and how do we take the entire humanity forward? How do we talk to college counselors? We've had a personal talk with all of them. They are ready to accept IBDP results, even if they are not written in exam-like conditions. Even the IGCSE results, they are looking at it, historical evidence, your past record. So there is a ray of hope. I'm happy about that.
Great. May I request Ian to respond on this, the short term and long. Yeah. Oh,
it's okay. I'm ready. I think the one thing that's going to come out of this crisis is actually a renewed focus for myself and my school. It gives us an opportunity from out of this chaos to give even greater meaning to the type of education that we value and the way that we work with people. That sounds simple, but I think it's very important that we take the opportunity, we grasp the opportunity to make education even better and more important. That sounds grand, but that's what we're trying to work on.
Sure. May I request Dr. Fisher to respond, please?
Yeah, I see the biggest opportunity here coming to the professionals within education, be they in the classroom, be they administrators, whatever. I think we have the chance to really rethink what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to look at doing a job which is more appropriate. I think the whole world has learned some lessons from COVID, learned some lessons about our environmental impact, learned some lessons about what truly matters in life, and that we have the opportunity as educators and particularly as teachers to incorporate some of those lessons so that they're not forgotten but are built on going forward into the future. So I think as teachers, we really have a chance to be quite different and have our voices heard in quite different ways than perhaps has been true in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. May I request Dr. Oli to respond, please?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff and Ian that this really is an opportunity to really sort of look at the actual education system we've got and how can we make learning more relevant, meaningful and current for our learners. And I think a lot of the online learning has done that. So for our younger learners, their home is now their classroom, and they're learning through things that have meaning and relevancy to them and to their surroundings. So I think, you know, it is about time that schools looked at what is worth learning and why, big issues of matters of urgency versus agency, and how are we, I think we decided as an international school that we're developing future leaders. So if we're developing future leaders, what do they look like in a world going forward? And it's not just about maths and science, it's about people being decent human beings who want to actually, I think as Jeff said, this whole situation has made us stop and look at what we thought was important and now how we reframe it to what we really believe is important. And I think this experience for those children, when they grow older, the stories they will tell about their COVID experience, I think for our privileged kids, I think will be one of a very big learning curve and a relook at themselves and how they were living their lives. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to just really get relevant, current, meaningful learning into the curriculum, and so the kids are interested in it.
Fantastic. May I request Mukesh to respond, please?
Well, I would just say that what Dr. Oli said is exactly, that I agree with. To one of the points that Dr. Jayshree mentioned, that online learning is bridging the gap. I feel that is not completely the fact. If you think about it, online learning is even in international schools. See, if we were to go and look at the majority of the schools which are not international, that gap is huge. They aren't able to do online learning. They've got significant challenges with the student-teacher ratio as well. The other challenge which I mentioned in the beginning was about the accessibility. Are these online platforms accessible to the differently abled ones? We talked about security, and I know one of our panelists talked about the IT team testing the platform, which is Zoom. Zoom works fine. I mean, I've had no issues. One needs to know how to use it. So, till the time when people were coming up on platforms, they weren't aware of the challenges that the platform brings. They weren't trained. So once, you understand the nuances of the platform, it can be addressed. But my point remains the cyber security. With the screen time that the children are spending online, there is a lot of collaboration happening. Teachers are interacting with the students. There are one-on-ones, but there are also students directly having, while the teacher is teaching, students are engaging in side conversation. They create their views, they communicate. Now there, if somebody posts a link that can create damage to somebody else's computer, like, you would get an email saying, hey, if you click this, you would be able to get a free iPad, right? So you click on that link. Once you enter your information, there is cyber security issue. Those are some of the challenges that I see, and the digital divide that this is going to create. I think right now, because of the uncertainty, there are a lot of things that we'll have to think about. We don't know how things are going to be in future. There will be hybrid learning. My friends have talked about multiple models that you'll have shifts. You could have shifts. You could have hybrid learning, wherein part of it you're doing online, part physical classrooms. Learning we'll have to make more meaningful, like I mentioned earlier. You'll have to come up with creative ways to not just engage children in meaningful learning, but also come up with ways that make them inquire more, make them want to know what they are doing, why they are doing it, right? You'll have to seed thoughts in their mind so that they start to think and come up with ideas, because like a number of us have talked about, in adversity, there are a lot of opportunities, and the children who are in middle years or doing DP program, they are the next generation of entrepreneurs. We'll see a lot of them coming up with ideas that would turn into products, and they would be the future leaders. So that's just my 2 cents.
Sure. May I request Randy to respond, please?
So I think the short-term result of this will depend on whether the teachers, administration, and schools take this opportunity and implement, a full or somewhat integrated system with technology. So there are many teachers who will get excited about some of the things they've learned during this time, and they will continue to do that in the classroom. There will be others who will return to the chalkboard and continue teaching, the way that they did before, and see this as a dip in, or a blemish on their career. So we hope that the integration of technology will result because people will feel more comfortable because they've been forced to embrace it. I think that the other thing to realize, and we've heard from other countries around the world, and I think Mr. Modi talked about this, is the access to internet, Wi-Fi in the rural communities. So in the short term, I think there will be an acceleration to provide that, which will be seen as an essential service. Now Wi-Fi is a private entity that people have to pay for, and many households don't have. So to access, the internet and education through that may be challenging for some. So to accelerate that, to make sure that all families have access to education in that format would be ideal. The other thing I will mention is about the blended flexible learning model. So this has been going on for years in a lot of countries, and I've been part of a school in Canada that ran this model, and it's about flexible learning. So why do all students have to sit in a classroom at the same time studying grade 9 science? Why do we force them all to sit together in front of a teacher and learn that provided in a recorded format, and they can view it and learn it and ask questions following that to the teacher? So this flexible model based on performance standards versus being in the seat is definitely a longer term adjustment, and something that will change in India and has changed in many parts of the world, where students and families have more flexibility, whether they have adventures they're going on, whether they're, competing in art competitions, they're musicians, or, whatever, athletes, they're given the flexibility to be able to learn at their own pace, right? The advanced placement program, American curriculum, allows that. So if I have a grade 9 student who's a brilliant scientist, then we don't make them do grade 9, 10, 11, sitting there with all of the students. They can do an AP biology class in grade 9. So the flexibility, I think, will start to come in India, and schools here will start to adopt what other schools in the West have been doing for some time.
Fantastic. May I request Pratima Sinha to respond, please?
Yeah, I agree with Andy on this flexibility of the curriculum, because international curriculums have really should come up with more flexible curriculum. I feel that we also need to work on it as educators and build up such kind of teaching strategies and content which will actually help the child in future for the different skills that will be required by the child. Because we don't know what is going to happen. We're talking about Industrial Revolution 2, 4.0. So those skills have to be now imbibed in the students, and we need to work on it. Second point that I want to add on is, as educators, we need to actually give the child a solution to the problem that he's facing right now. We talk only about the problems that the child will face today or tomorrow, but many a times we forget that solution is also important for the child, because that's where I feel a happiness curriculum, or a curriculum which has something related to a more happy world beyond, something should be, we should be working on. That is really going to come up, because we have seen the kind of depression that children are going into. Now every day we read in the newspapers also about students, especially teenagers, committing suicide and all that. So that's where we talk about lot about the problem, but we never ever talk about the solution in front of the child. So I feel that, according to me, that point is very important for me. Third thing I feel is homeschooling may become a major reality in future. Of course, in India, it was not really happening so much. But now parents seeing the situation, how it may be in future, a lot of parents may opt for homeschooling also, because there are a lot of options, there are a lot of flexibility. A child who's an athlete and he wants to give more time to his activity, then maybe he would like to do homeschooling. So that also will become, I think, a reality. So from my side, these are the 3 things that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So I have looked at the questions, and we as panelists have addressed most of it. But if anyone is interested to respond on anything, you may. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Jayshree.
So when Pratima was telling us about how children are under stress and anxiety, so mental health is the most important factor that all of us must respect and adhere to. So we are doing behavior modification classes by counselors who talk about cyberbullying, or who talk about anger management, empathy, sharing. These kind of skills are going to become more and more important in the coming years. These are skills that we need to have our children imbibe.
That is true. But when we talk about how the future is going to be for you, we should show them a brighter future. That is what I'm trying to say. I mean, the child should feel that his future is bright rather than, he has to go through all these problems.
Yes. So we will end this panel with closing remarks of 1 minute with each of the panelists. So you may touch upon any of the points which we have missed till now. So may I request Surabhi to give her closing remarks.
So first of all, thank you for this wonderful session. I think a lot of things have already been discussed, but I'd like to add 2 things here. One is, while I know we're talking about international schools, but there are children who still don't have access to a good internet connection or to say laptops and devices. And I think as schools, we can help them maybe say rent laptops, or be able to, somehow get them hotspot access, cheap internet, so that they can, continue with this learning, online learning properly. So that's, I think, something that schools could also assist, like going into their homes and making sure that that infrastructure is in place. And I think the second thing that's very, very important, and as international schools, we do have a little bit more, I don't know, whether it's funds or commitment, let's just focus on teacher training, because the teachers are working very, very hard right now. They have been asked to do something which they may not have done previously. And, we want them to excel. We want them to take 7-8 periods every day, teach just as well as they were doing earlier. And that cannot happen without training. They need to be equipped with the right tools, with the pedagogy and all of that. So I think it's extremely important that as school leaders, some amount of time, effort, and money is set aside for teacher training.
Dr. Fisher, your concluding remarks.
Well, it's always difficult to conclude after such an interesting session. So thank you to all of the panelists and to you for organising it. I would just echo Surabhi's comments in that I think that the future is really about the teachers. It's well established in research that if a school leadership or a school management wants to raise the quality of the student outcomes, the only reliable way of doing that is to raise the quality of the teachers that are in the classroom. And we all know, don't we, that if you've had 3 or 4 or 5 truly effective teachers in your life, then your life outcomes are altered by that as well. So I absolutely support what Surabhi's been saying, is that the key here is to take the opportunities provided by developing, training, supporting, and making as pedagogically expert as possible our teachers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher, for pointing about the teachers. Dr. Oli.
Yeah, I would again just echo what Jeff has said. I think good teachers know how to plan and respond and adapt in any given situation. I think one thing I heard a few weeks ago on a session with other international schools around the world was there was a worry in their area that teachers kind of went, actually, this is not what I signed up for, and don't actually want to do the job anymore, because it is so much tougher from a computer screen, not just the technical side of it, but the whole interaction with all different, depending on the age of the kids, etc., all these different challenges. So I think that's one thing we have to make sure that we're we're nurturing our teachers to keep doing the job. Otherwise, we're going to have a shortage of teachers. Is one possibility, I guess. Yeah, and I think everyone's situation is different. We're all in different contexts, and then within our own context, there are different contexts. So, you know, for our situation, we already had the Google Classroom and Seesaw. Everything was in place, so it was a steep learning curve, but it was done fairly quickly and seamlessly as a consequence. And I really believe that I can't see any teacher going back to an old-fashioned method of teaching after this. That would be counterintuitive to the development of our world. So I've got enough faith that as we move along in a technological era, everybody will, if they've gained the skills, they will maintain the skills and get better and better.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Oli. May I request Ian to please respond?
Yes, I don't want to add on to the eloquent responses so far. I just want to say that I actually think that from this, the importance of community will be even stronger. And I think that we'll be stronger as a result of this, not weaker. And the bridges that we're building between ourselves through greater collaboration between schools shouldn't be forgotten in the future as well. We should continue in this line and in this manner to improve the education of everyone across India, not just within our own towns. Let's keep talking, let's keep working together. Let's forget all these rivalries, let's collaborate.
Thank you, Ian. May I request Mukesh to give your concluding remarks, please? Mukesh, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, Subit, and all the panelists. It was truly a interesting session. You know, I think one thing that that has come out as a positive in COVID-19 is collaboration. We weren't having these many events, these many webinars, these many sessions, exchanging ideas, what is working well, what is not working well. So I think, like Ian said, you know, that we need to have this greater collaboration. We need to continue that. When 1918 Spanish flu, which took more than 50 million lives, couldn't keep us inside home. I think this COVID-19 is not going to be there forever. We are going to be out of it. And while Dr. Oli said that, you know, we'll have to, we can't go back to the same physical classrooms and all. I personally feel that I can't, the moment COVID-19 is over and we are ready to go back to classrooms, we would want to go back to classrooms because that is where real learning is. We'll continue to use technology to make learning more meaningful. You know, we are softwares like Seesaw, Padlet, Google Classrooms, Microsoft Teams, you know, you name multiple platforms. In fact, another important point that I think is more relevant now is teacher training using online resources. So there's a recent product, you know, that we started testing from our IT technology company side, which is called Teaching Channel, that a company in US, which is a client called Learner's Edge, has acquired. And Teaching Channel is a US-based company. They've got a lot of interesting videos of in-classroom sessions, which teachers can use for learning. So I think what is going to be at the center of all this is teachers. It is important that at Prometheus, we are blessed to have a great team of teachers, young teachers who got great experience in IB International Board, and it didn't take them more than 24 hours to get us going and ensuring that parents are happy, that the children are actually getting to learn. We are catering to international, you know, again, students who are studying IB. So our set of parents, they had infrastructure support back at home, you know, decent broadband connection, except for the fact, you know, where you have sibling cases where we were flexible enough to change the timings to make sure that they don't face that challenge. But I think, you know, one thing that I can't wait to have this COVID-19 be over, because a lot of children are missing on education. Majority of our population in India is not getting benefited through online learning sessions. Thank you very much. It was such a pleasure to be part of this panel discussion.
Thank you, Mukesh. May I request Pratima Sinha to give your concluding remarks, please?
I was just going through the questions that were being posted and one or two chats. So most of the questions are based on should we change our assessments. So I think, do we agree that if you're doing online teaching, you need to actually relook into your assessment process also, right? So you will have to do the changes. Second thing, what I saw was how do we do collaboration and exchange, because Anne had mentioned about it. What I understand is IB and as well as Cambridge, IGCSE, they have a wonderful portal of, you call it as hub, right? Teachers hub, where all the teachers can access it. So it gives you, if you are part of a Cambridge International School, so your teachers, I'm sure, will be able to be part of it. And teachers across the world, they put up their best practices into it. So you can always look into it and learn from it. And otherwise also, if you want to exchange and collaborate, please connect with the schools which are in the vicinity, and please do the needful, because I'm telling you, Hyderabad, we have a wonderful connectivity with all the heads, with all the principals, and we actually jointly take decisions on a lot of issues and a lot of matters. So it really helps. And with that, I would like to conclude saying thank you, everybody, all the panelists. It was wonderful meeting you all. These are challenging times. We have to adapt ourselves, otherwise we become nothing, extinct. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pratimaji. May I request Dr. Jayshree to give your concluding remarks, please?
Thank you, Elets. Thank you, Ravi. This one goes out to all the parents. Make the best of these times. Make your meal times happy times of conversation, talking about local, national, and global issues. If you can learn Shakespeare, you can learn Kalidas. Help your children to come forward and do household chores. Ask your children to instill respect for your household, your baijis and your servants. Help them not to waste, whether it be food, water, electricity. These are also life skills that we need to teach our children. And there can't be a better time than this. Einstein or say Newton, they came up with a lot of creativity out of boredom when they had really nothing to do. So this is an opportunity that we're going to find more and more creative work from the children. Let's encourage them to write, compile them, and get their books printed, see that they do a math research project, involve them in things that they haven't done before to make their life a little more interesting, fruitful, and this will go a long way.
Great. Fantastic, Dr. Jayshree. I think each of the panelists have given a very interesting perspective on each of the topics discussed. Yeah, I was like delighted to have you here, and I have personally learned a lot in this session. Thanks for joining, and thanks for joining all the audience. And I will request all the speakers and the audience that this session is available live on the Facebook of Digital Learning and Elets Facebook handles. So if you have liked the session, you will please like and share it, so that this meaningful discussion which has happened here can reach to a lot more people, so that everyone is benefited. And with this, we should take off from here, and I will say namaskar to everyone, and say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.